Hey everybody, it's Russell. Welcome back to the channel. I hope everybody has their tickets to go see Ant-Man and Wasp and Quantumania, and I hope you go see it at AMC Theater. But I want to take this opportunity with the movie coming out to tell a behind-the-scenes story of myself and the director of Ant-Man, Peyton Reed, and how Peyton kind of bookended my Hollywood adventure. And if you stick to the end of the video, you'll get to see the video of this picture being taken and also a little video tour of the Disney lot. And if you are a Star Wars or Back to the Future fan, stick around because you're going to love this ending. And for those of you who don't know, Peyton Reed, he's a film director and he's a writer and he does some acting too. And he's most famous for doing the Ant-Man Marvel films. But I first heard of Peyton Reed and got to know him back in 1990 when he did the behind-the-scenes documentary on the Back to the Future trilogy when they were filming Back to the Future 2 and 3. And this came out on, it was on our local network, played the documentary, and I found out that, he was a North Carolina native, and that was really cool. And I want you to remember one thing about Back to the Future that's going to come to play in this video at the end, was the picture of Marty and his brother and sister, and how in the movie, as he changed things in the past, his brother and sister started to fade away in the picture, and pretty soon Marty was going to fade away. So the more you changed in the past, the more you change the future. So remember that, and we'll get back to that at the end of the video. But let's go back in time to the early 1990s. There I am. I'm a young junior senior at North Carolina, and I'm involved in student television, which was a student television station that a bunch of students invented back in 1983. And Peyton Reed had been at North Carolina as well, and he participated in student television. He was back there in the early days. And when I told people that, I wanted to go to California and be a filmmaker, people said, hey, you should talk to these other Carolina grads that went out there a few years before you. They were like maybe 5 years ahead of me at that time. And right now they were starting to get their first breaks in the industry. And someone gave me a number for Peyton Reed, and I called them up and I said, my name is Russell Corey. I produce a, comedy show off the cuff at student television, and I want to come out to, California and, try to make it in the industry. And we talked he was very generous, and we talked for a long time, and he talked about, where to live, what to do, and what kind of jobs you could expect. And we talked about him making these behind the scenes documentaries, and especially how much I loved those. In fact, I told him about watching the behind the scenes documentaries of Star Wars, and he loved those too. And it was a really good conversation, and we said we would stay in touch. And one of the reasons I wanted to stay in touch was I thought, he'd be a really good person to know in the industry, and I really hope we'd have a maybe a working relationship in the future, sort of a mentor and a protege. So that summer after I graduated, I was an instructor in a high school program that Carolina runs, and for a week high school students come in from all over the state and they learn about TV and film production. And Peyton Reed had done this as well when he was in high school. But during that time, I went to the guy that was running it, this Professor Settle, and I said, hey, can we show Peyton Reed's documentary on Back to the Future and say, hey, this was a kid that, went through the program and now he's getting some success in the industry. So as you see here, this was a journal note that I made. This was July 28th, 1991. Settle didn't like the idea of Peyton's video. I will work on a movie night, meaning I wanted to show, Peyton's documentary on Back to the Future, but the Settle didn't like the idea. But at night, as a formal part of the program during the day, because it was pretty well scheduled. But at night, back in the dorm, the kids could relax and they could watch movies. So, we worked it out. You see on this next note in my journal, I'll show the Peyton video with the Star Wars video, meaning that I was going to show them Peyton's documentary, and I was also going to show them a documentary on the making of Star Wars. But we would do this at night in the dorm in the common room. And, again, this was one of the things that Peyton and I talked about. You looked at George Lucas's relationship with Francis Ford Coppola and their protege mentor relationship. And I talked with Peyton about that and about how, you have all these Carolina guys coming out in the industry. Wouldn't it be great if we could have our own pack of, like the film brats, they call them, that you had all these great directors, Ron Howard, Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, George Lucas, Robert Zemeckis, and Francis Ford Coppola, and they all knew each other. They all worked with each other, and they helped each other out. And I said, wouldn't it be great to have, a group of Carolina grads who were like this? And Peyton agreed. And because Peyton had worked on the Back to the Future films, which I loved, I was hoping like, hey, you know, I could be his Robert Zemeckis to his Spielberg, that he would be, you know, the mentor and I would be the protege. And I thought that would be, you know, a wonderful story. So when I got to LA, September 1991, finally made it, drove from North Carolina to LA, and I was living with a bunch of guys that had also come from Carolina as well. And you see in this is a journal note. This is from September 1991. We are looking in Burbank for a 3-bedroom apartment. I have my meeting in the morning, and we'll go looking again. Meaning, I actually had a meeting with an agent. I was trying to get even an agent before I had an apartment as a writer. Peyton seemed like a real nice guy. Maybe he would be interested in writing Hellbent and maybe directing it also. Hellbent was this project I thought of called Hellbent Bastard, which was a parody of like Arnold Schwarzenegger films. Obviously, that didn't go anywhere. But you can see what would happen was there had been a Carolina alumni get-together in September of 91, right when we got there. And that's where I actually met Peyton Reed for the first time. Previous times we had just talked on the phone, but it was finally nice to meet him in person. And we were going to try to set up like a one-on-one, you know, getting together for lunch. And that's when I would really say, hey, you know, take me under your wing, teach me, you know, what you know. And so I was really hoping to get this one-on-one meeting. About a month later, October 14th, 1991, I'll call Peyton on Monday to set up a ZM visit. ZM was the production company that did these behind-the-scenes documentaries on the movies. It has been over a year since I've tried to work a visit with Peyton. I'm not sure if he believes in the STV dream. We'll find out. Meaning, you know, I think he had been in North Carolina a couple times. We tried to get together and it didn't work out. And now I was in LA and we couldn't really connect here. And I was kind of wondering, like, you know, maybe he doesn't see this, you know, this group of STV, UNC alumni working together quite the way I did. And then a couple months later, December 15th, 1991, talked to Peyton. I wanted him to go to the Star Wars screening, but he is going home tomorrow. He said to call on the 30th, and I think we're going to try and get together at that point. Yeah, there was a screening of Star Wars, you know, and again, this is the early 90s. There was not a lot going on with Star Wars, but he was going out of town and it didn't work out. So at this point, I never got that one-on-one meeting with Peyton. And we never developed any kind of a mentor-protege relationship. We did see each other at Carolina events. It was always great to see him. He's such a friendly guy and such a nice guy. I just kind of wish the relationship had been more than that. But who am I to say, you know? But I did writing on my own. And it took me a few years to really develop my craft. But in 1994, I finally had a screenplay that was getting me meetings. I got an agent with this script. And we got meetings with it. And it was called Resident of the United States. And eventually the Family Channel optioned it. And that was my first option as a writer. And the premise of it was a former president gets voted out of office and he kind of humiliated. He moves to a small town and he ends up running for mayor of the small town. And now Family Channel, they optioned it, but they never made it. They let the option expire and nothing ever, you know, happened with it. Now you're probably thinking, but wait a minute, president moves to a small town, runs for mayor. I think I've heard of this movie. And you have. You have heard of a movie called Welcome to Mooseport, which starred Gene Hackman as the president and Ray Romano as like the local guy that runs to get him. This was not my movie. I had no relation to the ship with this movie. I don't think they stole my idea. Nobody I ever met with was involved with, you know, this production. Ideas get developed and happen parallel. And unfortunately, in this instance, you know, an idea got made into a movie very similar to mine, but I wasn't lucky enough, with my idea when I was pushing it for it to come through, but it did for them. In the meantime, Peyton Reed, as a film director, was having much better luck. He was doing, he did the TV, the modern take on The Computer That Wore Tennis Shoes with Kirk Cameron for Disney. He worked with the Upright Citizen Brigade directing. And he also directed episodes of Mr. Show. So he was making a lot of inroads on television as a director, and his career was really moving along. Me, I wrote at night and on the weekends, and during the day I worked as a billing clerk at a videotape wholesaler. But a few years later, in 1999, I finally had another script that was getting some attention in the industry. And I wrote this one. It was a comedy, and I wrote it with a partner this time so we could kind of bounce ideas off each other to make sure it was still funny. And that was my friend John Bolton, also a Carolina grad, who I had moved out from North Carolina with, and he knew Peyton Reed as well. So we got this script, Yes Man, and it was about a guy that's got to say yes to everything. And originally he worked at a venture capitalist, and he met all the people they wanted to turn down. So his job all day was just to say no to people. That anybody, there was no chance that they were going to say yes to him, they would set the meeting up for this guy. They called them the Nancy Reagan applicants because it was automatically a just say no. And the story is that he's they want him to take a more active role in the company and maybe look at some of the projects that they might consider funding. And he's worried about this because if he says yes to something or recommends it and it doesn't work out, he's afraid he's going to get fired. And also saying no for all these years, it turned him into a very negative person. And it's also about the people in his life trying to get him to say yes more. So that was our script, not getting too deep in the weeds to it. But we were meeting with Tim Allen's production company, Harold Ramis, rest his soul. We met with his production company on this script, and it was really good to make. But also at the same time, in 2000, Peyton Reed's film Bring It On came out. This was his first feature film, and it was kind of a surprise hit. It starred Kirsten Dunst and Gabrielle Union as the cheerleaders. And, it was a comedy. We had a comedy script, and John and I were saying, hey, maybe we should ask our manager to send the script to Peyton's agent and see if he might be interested in doing it. Or if we see Peyton, maybe ask him, in person to maybe take a look at it. And I thought about it, and I said, I've been out here almost 10 years. Nobody's helped me since. None of the other Carolina, grads that were out there ever took me under the wing to actually work with me. We were very social, and we did a lot of social things together. But actually actively working in the industry, that never really happened. And I thought, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it on my own so I can say nobody gave it to me, I earned it. And also, I kind of knew, I wasn't sure if Peyton would actually get back to us if we sent it to him. And then also, I still saw him at alumni things, and it was always so nice to see him. I didn't want anything to interfere with that relationship. So if we officially sent him a project and either he never read it or never got back to us, or he said no, then it would kind of change that relationship and it wouldn't be as pure as it was. And I really wanted to keep it just a very nice, relationship where he knew we weren't after anything. We just were happy to see him at these Carolina events. So we decided not to show it to him or, send it to him because, hey, we were getting all these meetings, otherwise certainly something would work out, right? Well, the problem we kept running into time and time again, people would say, we like this script, we think it's funny, but it's too much like Liar Liar, starring Jim Carrey. It had come out a couple years before that. And we just kept running into this again and again until finally, the script kind of just languished on our shelves and it died. And nothing ever happened to it, for us. And I say for us because about 8 years later, in 2008, Yes Man did come out, and it was starring Jim Carrey, and it was directed by Peyton Reed. And again, I had nothing to do with this Yes Man that got produced. I don't think they stole our idea. I don't think they stole our script. I just think these ideas developed parallel, and that people that were behind that Yes Man were lucky enough to have their project go forward. And we, unfortunately, maybe we were a little too early, and ours got stymied. It hurts. It's a gut punch. And it's really hard to take, but that's life, and you have to deal with it. I didn't quit writing. I kept writing after that. Unfortunately, I never did have that breakout success. And the one thing that saved me was I did get a job working for Disney, and I worked with them for 13 years. And it was awesome to be part of the Walt Disney Company, and I scheduled commercials for one of their cable channels. And also the other great thing that happened for me was I got married and I had kids and started a family. And after a while, you start to think about moving away. And it was hard because, Disney had bought Star Wars, and here it was my favorite movie as a kid, the film that really got me into filmmaking. Star Wars was a part of Disney, but I had to turn my back on it to start a new life with my family in Oregon, where we could afford a house, the public schools were better. And we made the decision to walk away. I gave up screenwriting, but I didn't give up writing. In fact, I got to self-publish books on Amazon, and my most successful one was an unofficial parody of Star Wars, Tweets from Tattooing. So if you're interested, you can find that on Amazon. Now, Peyton Reed obviously had a great career, and he had his own little Star Wars project. He directed the season finale of The Mandalorian, and that was the season where Luke Skywalker came back. And he had this great, I was so proud of Peyton and so happy for him. And I knew he was such a huge Star Wars fan way back when, in 1990, 91, when nobody cared about Star Wars. And he was just as passionate about me, about Star Wars. And to see him have this opportunity and to come through as he did was just amazing. And I was so proud of him, so happy for him. And there was this awesome Twitter exchange between Peyton and Mark Hamill. He wrote to Mark Hamill, "Dear Hamill himself, when I was a kid, this photo hung on my bedroom wall. Star Wars and Luke Skywalker in particular meant a great deal to me. Some things never change. It was an honor and a dream come true to work with you on at The Mandalorian. Thank you." And then hashtag MTFBWY, I believe that is May the Force be with you. And there's the picture of Luke in his land speeder. And Mark Hamill tweeted back to him, "Dear at Mr. Peyton Reed, I'm so grateful to have been given the unexpected opportunity to revisit my character when he was still a symbol of hope and optimism. Your assured direction and kindness was a crucial element in the experience and means more to me than I can say. Hashtag thank you." What a great exchange between the two. And it really speaks volumes, I think, about the type of person that Peyton is. And I think you feel that from these tweets. So getting back to this picture, here it is, two Tar Heels, two very different Hollywood stories. But I wanted to get back to that picture from Back to the Future. And let me put that on there. And this was, again, his brothers and sister and how they faded away. And if you look at the brother, look at what the shirt he's wearing, that red Mickey Mouse shirt. And look at the shirt my son is wearing, that red Mickey Mouse shirt. And as hard as it is to tell this story and to be a coulda, woulda, shoulda, and to, know someone that literally had their dreams come true of directing Luke Skywalker and having, directing these huge $100 million Marvel Ant-Man films. And there we are both smiling. But the idea is, do I wish things were different? Sure, in a way. But when you think about it, though, if we had met up in those early days, and I said to him, I want to be your protege, take me under your wing, teach me what you know. And he said, okay, kid, come along for the ride. And maybe we did work together and stuff. Or if any of those scripts, if my President script had gotten, actually made and had been a success, or the Yes Man script, maybe if Peyton actually read it, maybe he would have responded to the material back then. Or, anything could have happened. Things maybe could have been different, but they didn't. Things worked out like they did. And just in the movie, as his brother starts to fade away when he's making all these changes in the past, is there anything that I would do in the past that could possibly change the trajectory that life put me on, where I'm holding my son right there and having my son kind of disappear? Well, to ask that question, why don't I bring in an expert? I'm going to bring my son in, James himself. This is James today. So James, are you excited about seeing the new Ant-Man?
Yeah. Dad, would you do anything different if you could have been a big success?
If it would have meant that I couldn't be right here with you, then I wouldn't have done anything different.
Okay.
At all.
Okay.
And because I'm your dad, I am a big success.
Yeah.
So this is walking around the Disney studio, really for one of the last times, and I wanted my son there, and I wanted to videotape this so he could see, where his dad worked. Hey, James, this is pretty cool, huh? Well, that's where they make the movies. Yeah, see here, come here, bring him over here. This is the stage. How you doing? You like the tour so far? And see this movie here, James? Ant-Man? Daddy knew the man who directed it. His name is Peyton Reed. How you like that? This is the Julie Andrews stage. And we'll walk up just around the corner. Page 1. Hi, James. Your dad that too. So this actually was all one take. I did edit it just because I didn't want to bore you. So we're walking down the street here, and what are the odds that this would happen? None of this was planned. This just happened by happenstance. And watch what happens next. Oh my God! There he is, the man. How are you?
What are you doing?
I was just showing him the poster. I says, Daddy knew that guy, Peyton Reed. How are you, man? Here, Fran, take a picture of this.
Hold on. Hi,
I'm recording.
Francesca. Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
It's John Corey, another North Carolinian.
Nice to meet you, Fran.
What's Corey? I'm UNC alum.
Okay.
Okay, I'm taking a picture. I'm just on video.
Here,
Okay, I'm getting a
here,
video.
there's James.
Yeah, why don't, yeah.
So James, this is the director of Ant-Man. So when you're old enough to watch it on video.
How you doing?
Okay, let me get a picture of you
How's it
guys.
going, man?
Good. So that my wife paused the camera at that point, and we took a picture right there. But I knew we had just seen the poster, so Peyton was nice enough to go back with us and actually take another picture with the Ant-Man poster. So that's my Hollywood adventure story, and how Peyton Reed was there at the beginning when I was in college making the decision to go to California, and he was there at the very end when I was, saying goodbye to Hollywood and taking my, final sort of walk around the studio at Disney with my son. Thank you for watching the video, and if you stayed till this point, I've got one more surprise for you. When I was looking for a picture of Peyton Reed early in his career, I found this one that he actually tweeted out himself, but there was someone else in the picture, and if I left them in there, it probably would have been a little confusing, so I had to crop them out. But if you stayed for this long, thank you for watching. Please go see Ant-Man, and here is your end of the video surprise. The person that got cropped out of the picture is